Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Probe ordered in Stampede incident at a religious gathering in Hathras in India's Uttar Pradesh that has claimed 116 lives. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expresses condolences, assures all help. US President Joe Biden faces voices of dissent from within the party. Aide says 25 House Democrats prepare to call for Biden to step aside. Trump hush money sentencing delayed to September, less than 7 weeks before the US election. In France, chances of Marine Le Pen's RN winning an outright majority dented. Over 200 opposition candidates pull out of the race to block far right in Sunday's second round of voting. Blockbuster football action awaits fans as quarter-final ties decided for Euro 2024 as Netherlands and Turkey make it to the quarter-finals. The death toll in the tragic incident in North India's Hathras has risen to 116. 80 injured are being treated at various hospitals. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath have announced financial assistance of 200,000 rupees each to the family of the deceased. Prime Minister Modi also expressed his condolences and wished for speedy recovery of the injured. He spoke with Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath following the tragedy and assured that all necessary help would be provided to the victims. The Chief Minister has formed a team to inquire into the causes of the tragedy, which has been directed to submit its report within 24 hours. The Chief Secretary and the Director General of Police of the state visited the Stampede site. The Chief Secretary has assured strict action against those responsible for the tragic incident. The state government said the number of devotees attending the religious event were more than that permitted by the administration. According to the police, the deceased mostly included women and children. Meanwhile, a case has been filed against the organizers of the religious event in Hathras. According to the FIR, permission was granted for 80,000 people, but more than 2.5 lakh devotees attended the event. They have been charged under sections 105, 110, 126, 223 and 238 of the new Criminal Code Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will reply to the motion of thanks on the President's address in the Upper House of Parliament today. The first session of the 18th Lok Sabha was adjourned sine die on Tuesday, marking the conclusion of a productive legislative period that saw significant developments. The session, which commenced on 24th of June, comprised of 7 sittings over a span of 34 hours, achieving a commendable productivity rate of 103%. All right, DD India's Dibendu Mondal joins us with more on this. Dibendu, we've told our viewers that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be replying to the motion of thanks on the President's address in the Rajya Sabha today. What more can you add to this? How do we expect the day to pan out?
Well, Preeti, good morning. That's right. You know, today would be the last day of the first sitting of the 18th Lok Sabha, where, the Lok Sabha has already been adjourned yesterday, sine die, by the Lok Sabha Speaker after the Prime Minister's speech on the motion of thanks. But what is expected in the Parliament today is, of course, it's the last day. So the Prime Minister's speech on the floor of the House to the Rajya Sabha, replying on the motion of thanks or the President's inaugural address, will happen later in the day today. The exact timing is yet to come. But of course, it will be somewhere between noon is what is expected. What can we expect from the Prime Minister's speech is, of course, on the similar lines as to what we saw in the Lok Sabha yesterday. The Prime Minister will try to lay out the plans of his government and the achievements that his government has been able to do over the last 10 years. There will also be, several key highlights from his speeches that we saw yesterday also in the lower house, where he enlisted that the government has been trying to, work even harder for the development of the people. He also will also be talking about how the economy of this country will be growing at a much faster pace than what was witnessed over the last 10 years. That this government aims to bring India's economy to become the third largest economy in the world. Currently, it is the fifth largest economy in the world. So, of course, some aspects, some on those aspects will also be spoken, is expected, in fact, to be spoken about by the Prime Minister on the floor of the House. It's Preeti basically, laying out the vision for the new government and how the new government will be taking its policy decisions and give a sense of how the government will be functioning over the next 5 years. So these are some of the broad outlines, what's expected from the PM speech. This noon we are expecting to hear the Prime Minister on the floor from the floor of the upper house of Parliament.
All right, so the Prime Minister will spell out the priorities of the government in the Rajya Sabha when he replies. All right, Dibyendu, yesterday we saw the Lok Sabha, the 18th Lok Sabha was adjourned sine die. Though we know that this is the inaugural session of the Lok Sabha after the general elections 2024, but then how would you evaluate the 18th Lok Sabha session that was adjourned sine die yesterday?
Well, Preeti, that's right. We have, yesterday, while adjourning the session, the Speaker, Om Birla, had said that there have been 103% productivity of the first sitting of the Lok Sabha. So this was pretty mostly an inaugural session where not really any legislative businesses that happened in this 18th, the first sitting of the 18th Lok Sabha, also given the fact that the constitutional processes needed to be completed in the first session. But it worked, day before yesterday in the Lok Sabha worked till about midnight. So, of course, the people, the opposition, as well as the Treasury benches have worked together. There was some sort of synchronization between both the opposition and the Treasury benches when it came to the functioning of the Lok Sabha. But Preeti, having said this, what we have witnessed inside the house of the Lok Sabha is, of course, it's a much more stronger opposition than the country had over the last 10 years. Of course, much more chaos was witnessed within the floor of the house. Even yesterday, we saw how the opposition tried to disrupt the Prime Minister when the Prime Minister was speaking in the Lok Sabha by creating chaos and jumping into the well of the House. Several senior members of the BJP, including the Prime Minister, Home Minister, Defence Minister, and the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, condemned the opposition for such an unparliamentary behavior because, the Prime Minister was speaking on the floor of the House and the opposition kept raising slogan throughout his speech that went on for over 2 hours. So, of course, more such actions within the lower house of Parliament is expected over the next 5 years, given the fact that the opposition claims that they have much more numbers now, and they will be asserting themselves within the house of within the floor of the House in the Parliament. So we'll see much more aggressive opposition on the floor of the House over the next 5 years. So of course, even though the inaugural session is coming to an end today, but the budget session will begin later this month. So, of course, we'll see much more action happening within the premises of the Parliament over the next course of the few years.
All right. Thank you so much, Dibyendu, for joining in with those details. All right, let's turn focus to other updates. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, met Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Murat Nurtlev, in Astana on Tuesday. Both the leaders discussed expanding strategic partnership and India's increasing engagement with Central Asia in various formats. Dr. S. Jaishankar also exchanged views on regional and global issues with his counterpart. Dr. S. Jaishankar also thanked Kazakh Deputy Prime Minister and the FM for hospitality and arrangements of the SCO Council of Heads of State Summit. Dr. S. Jaishankar will represent India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana. Kazakhstan is hosting the summit in its capacity as the current chair of the grouping. India was the chair of the SCO last year. It hosted the SCO summit in the virtual format in July last year. All right, to get us more on this, we are joined in by our correspondent Akshay Dongre. Akshay, good morning. Now, we see that External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in Kazakhstan, and also he will be participating in the SCO Council of Heads of State Summit. Let us get more from you about India's participation at the forum. Let us get more from you as to what is there on the agenda.
Well, as far as India's participation is concerned, Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Foreign Minister of India, is leading the delegation of the Indian team that is taking part in the SCO summit. Now, generally, Prime Minister does that, but this time around, because of the visit to Russia, our Prime Minister already had a packed schedule, a pre-decided schedule, and that's why it was Dr. S. Jaishankar that had to take the mantle, and in fact, he had to lead the team to Astana in Kazakhstan, where the SCO summit will be held and the core meeting will take place on 4th of July. Now, increasingly, we are seeing that in the past 4-5 years, or in fact more than that, in fact in the past decade, SCO has emerged as one of the premier forums, global forums, especially that does not involve a lot of Western powers. That is more of an Asian or Central Asian thing. That has been evolving and that has been including more and more members. In fact, it was in 2017 when India was inducted into the SCO along with other countries, including Pakistan. So it is perhaps one of the few international forums where both India and Pakistan are members of. And that gives India a great opportunity to, in fact, speak very frankly to its counterparts in Pakistan regarding the cross-border terrorism, the terror funding, and all of the kind of issues that it has had with the Pakistani establishment. In fact, we have seen that this is the only multilateral forum where the Indian armed forces and the Pakistani armed forces conducted a joint exercise a couple of years back. So that gives SCO a very unique place as far as the multilateral forums are concerned. India's leadership has been focused on a secure kind of in fact, there is a term that was used by Prime Minister Narendra Modi that was secure, that included security, it included regional stability, it included respecting each other in territorial integrity, it included environment, it included all sort of aspects that, in fact, trouble countries of the global south, of South Asia, of Asia, of Central Asia as well. So that makes SCO quite important, and that's why India's participation also becomes extremely important as far as the issues that it faces from neighbors like especially Pakistan are concerned, where it gets an avenue to, in fact, have a open and frank dialogue with the Pakistani leadership regarding the issues that it has had without involving a third party. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, help us also understand what is the footing of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation, as a group on the global page, one. And secondly, India was the chair last year, and the SCO summit was organized through the virtual mode in July last year. Let us get a quick background, a quick roundup, sum up of the summit last year, and how does this summit in Kazakhstan take those priorities forward?
Well, yes, the members of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they keep on rotating the presidency of the SCO, much like a G20 that it happens. So last time around, last year, in fact, it was quite a busy and packed schedule for the Indian leadership. We had G20 also going on in India. Then there was SCO as well, and that is why it was held in more of a virtual manner. So that was it. In fact, when we look at the kind of leadership that India provided, then it talked about economic prosperity. It talked about a world free of terrorism. It talked about safe borders. It talked about no interference in territorial integrity and sovereignty of countries. It also talked about respecting each other in terms of the internal matters of countries are concerned. So now this time around, it is turn of Kazakhstan, where which is holding the presidency of the SCO. But talking about the importance of this multilateral forum, it is quite an important forum at the global level, because you have countries like China, you have countries like India, you also have Russia, you also have many other nations of the Central Asia and South Asia that are part of the grouping. Perhaps some of this forum has been able to do some sort of an impossible job of bringing India and Pakistan type of countries together, which also has China. So there you have, countries that have had, historically issues in terms of land borders or in terms of
All right.
trade.
So that was
They
about
can
the
come
significance
together.
of the SCO as an organization. Akshay, very
Absolutely.
quickly, I would ask you to let us, let us know what all were the priorities of the SCO summit when India hosted the summit last year, and how would this summit in Kazakhstan take those priorities forward? Very quickly, with there is positive time.
Well, Preeti, absolutely. I understand the scarcity of time. So that's what we were talking about. India's main goal was to ensure that economic prosperity, economic growth remains the top of the agenda, along with security, along with a world free of terrorism. And that's what it talked about time and again. In fact, in front of Pakistan as well, that has been one of the most notorious nations in South Asia in terms of harboring foreign as well as domestic terrorists, and has been promoting cross-border terrorism, not just in India, but in countries like Afghanistan and in other countries as well. India was quite clear as far as its stance against terrorism, both in terms of actually cross-border terrorism or cyber terrorism or other kind of terrorism, including terror funding. So India had taken a stance against all of these issues that plague the world.
All right, Akshay, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. All right, from one summit, we'll turn focus to the other summit. The Global India AI Summit 2024 will begin in New Delhi from today. It will highlight the Government of India's commitment to the responsible advancement of artificial intelligence. The two-day summit will be inaugurated by India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashnavi Vaishnav. The summit aims to host a gathering of international delegates, AI experts and policymakers. Will see the first day featuring a diverse array of sessions designed to delve deep into critical aspects of AI application and governance. The second day will pivot towards nurturing talent and scaling AI innovations. Now, the session titled Empowering Talent Through AI Education and Skilling aims to bridge the AI skills gap by spotlighting educational strategies and career pathways. Simultaneously, AI for Global Good, Empowering the Global South, will facilitate dialogues on inclusive AI development, echoing India's advocacy for equitable global AI access. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, with dissent against Biden growing, some pundits suggest Vice President Kamala Harris is a better Democratic candidate than him. UK all set for general elections to be held on July 4th. Kenya police clash with protesters as tax bill unrest continues. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you more updates. US President Joe Biden is facing candid questions from within after a disastrous debate night with Republican rival and former President Donald Trump. Doubts are now being raised in the party about his ability to lead. Some elected Democrats loyal to Biden have raised fresh questions on Tuesday about his 2024 re-election bid, with one calling for him to step aside. According to the sources, there are 25 Democratic members of the House of Representatives preparing to call for Biden to step aside. With pressure rising, some donors have also called for him to step aside, and other Democrats are worrying openly that he is not equipped to beat Trump in November. However, experts say whether Biden continues his 2024 bid for presidentialship after his halting debate performance against Republican presidential candidate Trump is largely his decision. Meanwhile, White House has termed Biden's stumbling performance during last week's debate against former President Trump as a bad night. White House Speaker Karine Jean-Pierre informed media that Biden has annual health checks and the administration released reports on his health. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi emphasized Biden's multiple legislative accomplishments during an interview on Tuesday, but said that it was a legitimate question to ask whether his debate performance was a one-night thing or a broader health problem.
What I can say is that, just to take a step back, it was a bad night. We understand that it was a bad night. And the president has spoken to this. And he understands that. And so I cannot speak to anything beyond what I just shared. The president has regular annual physicals that we release in a thorough report. We're going to continue to do that. I don't have anything else beyond that.
Fallout from the U.S. presidential debate continues, with some pundits suggesting that Vice President Kamala Harris is a better Democratic candidate than Joe Biden. As someone with an Indian and Jamaican ancestry, she was the first black woman and South Asian to get into the White House, which appeals to many voters. But Harris has been openly criticized on social media by billionaire Elon Musk, who says she's lying about Donald Trump's policies on abortion. Caroline Malone gets us more.
The race for the White House took a sharp turn last week after Joe Biden performed so badly in the debate against Donald Trump that Democrats began suggesting he needed to be replaced as their candidate. On his ticket is Vice President Kamala Harris, who is one of the strongest defenders of the president, saying he is still the better character for the job than Trump. Well, she's also been calling for the protection of reproductive rights on social media platform X, warning that Donald Trump would move to ban abortion nationally. That got the attention of the social media owner Elon Musk, who says she is lying. Well, in the debate, Trump took credit for the Supreme Court overturning of the constitutional right to abortion with Roe v. Wade, and said it's good that it's now up to individual states to decide on abortion. In the past, Trump also suggested he likes the idea of a 16-week abortion ban, but that now there's no need for it because the power lies with each state's legislature. Abortion is likely to remain a contentious issue, though, in a nation in which half of the states now have banned or strongly restricted abortion. And it's a strong campaign topic for Democrats like Harris, who know it resonates with voters. Around 2/3 of people say abortion should be legal in most cases. Caroline Malone in Washington, reporting for DD India.
In a major reprieve for former U.S. President Donald Trump, a New York judge postponed his sentencing for covering up hush money payments until September 18. The sentencing had been previously set for July 11th, just days before the Republican National Convention begins in Milwaukee on July 15th. The new timeline means Trump will likely have been nominated by his party to challenge Democratic President Joe Biden by the time he is sentenced. The conviction in New York in May made Trump the first former U.S. president ever convicted of a crime. He was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments over his alleged affair with an adult film star in the run-up to the 2016 election. All right, let's get you weather updates now. Hurricane Beryl is on course to hit Jamaica on Wednesday, potentially bringing with it winds of more than 250 kilometers an hour and life-threatening storm surges. At least 4 people have been killed by this storm. It is the strongest hurricane to hit the region this early in the season. U.S. correspondent Nick Harper gets us more.
A warning from the Prime Minister of Jamaica: take this hurricane as a serious threat. There is considerable concern that when Hurricane Beryl hits Jamaica later on Wednesday, it could cause significant damage. It's already passed through St Vincent and the Grenadines. There, the Prime Minister said that there was immense destruction. About 90% of the homes either damaged or completely destroyed. And we are seeing this trail of destruction being left by Hurricane Beryl, a Category 5 hurricane with winds of 250 kilometres an hour, moving its way through the Caribbean, from the east of the Caribbean all the way through to the Yucatan Peninsula on Mexico's eastern shore. We should see that happen by the end of this week. And by the end of this week, we could see a considerable death toll and certainly millions of dollars of damage. But we're also, on top of this, getting warning from scientists who are very concerned about what they're seeing. The fact that this hurricane has intensified as quickly as it has, that it has become a Category 5 hurricane, and that it is doing the devastation that it is. All of that is concerning scientists, because we should not be seeing a Category 5 hurricane of this power and strength this early in the hurricane season. Now, the hurricane season normally runs from the beginning of June until the end of November, but the peak of the activity is concentrated around the tail end of August, September, into the early part of October. It is incredibly unusual to see what we're seeing at this early stage. Scientists saying that this sets a precedent, also a worrying tone for what we could see throughout the whole of this hurricane season.
Sea surface temperatures have been at record level, at global level, for 14 months now. That is till the end of May. We'll get the figures for June, hopefully, later this week. So we've got very, very warm waters, and we need to bear in mind that it only takes one landfalling hurricane to set back, decades of development, and we fear what is happening with Hurricane Beryl, which has hit very, very, very small islands in the Caribbean who are not used to this size of hurricane. We fear that this is going to have a major knock on socioeconomic development.
Also raising the alarm that with the warmer temperatures of the oceans that are creating the conditions for Hurricane Beryl, this could be what we will see in future years. Much stronger hurricanes as a result of climate change coming earlier in the season and creating huge amounts of damage. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
All right, back home in India, the flood situation in northeastern state of Assam has turned extremely critical as Brahmaputra and many other rivers continue to flow above danger level. Over 11 lakh people have been affected in many villages in 28 districts. That is, to be precise, 2,028 villages in 28 districts. 3 deaths were reported on Tuesday, taking the death toll to 38 this year. The IMD has issued orange alert for all northeastern states and southwestern West Bengal for today. Also, extremely heavy rainfall has been predicted at isolated places of Assam and Meghalaya and other northeastern states for today and coming days as well. All right, Subina Roy joins us with more from Assam. Subina, we tell our viewers that the situation in Assam is critical as of now, and more than 2,028 villages have been affected in 28 districts, and this is in fact huge. Let us get more from you. What do we expect the weather to be in the next few days? How has the day begun today? And also, when we talk of the extent of damages, what has been the view of the evaluation of the administration?
Good morning, Preeti. Talking about the situation, these few days are going to be extremely crucial for Assam till July 5th, as due to extreme weather conditions and heavy rainfall. There has been heavy flooding throughout Assam. Over 11 lakh people were affected as per yesterday's bulletin report. The latest bulletin report says, and in 28 districts, which comprises Kamrup, Morigaon, Karimganj, and more of the upper Assam districts like Tinsukia, Dibrugarh, Jorhat, Tejpur, and Dhemaji, Lakhimpur. So these are the regions which have been majorly affected. And this time, the cyclonic circulation that has formed over northeast Assam majorly has affected the upper basin of Brahmaputra. and more than 11 rivers in Assam were flowing above danger level yesterday. So the Brahmaputra at Tejpur, Nyamati Ghat, Guwahati, Dhubri, then the Subansiri at Badadi Ghat, Buri Dihing at Kwang, Putimari, Kopili, then Beki, Kushiari, Barak, the Barak River and the Dholeshwari River were the ones which were flowing above danger level. Now talking about the crop effect, more than 42,000 hectares of crop have been affected. Yesterday, there were 3 death reports. 2 deaths were reported from Tinsukia district and 1 death was reported from Dhemaji district. Now, the rescue operations were on full swing yesterday. Yesterday, 13 fishermen were stranded in a sandbar in Brahmaputra in the Dibrugarh district, and they were rescued by Indian Army, Indian Air Force on the request of NDRF team. So rescue operations were on yesterday. 1 helicopter was deployed. Then 117 boats were deployed across Assam. 112 medical teams were deployed. Preeti. Now talking about the inmates who are living in relief camps, more than 18,000 inmates are living in relief camps, and the maximum number of inmates who are living is from Tinsukia district, Preeti. And this is to be noted that there are certain islands, river islands in the Tinsukia district from where people are majorly affected, and these are the people who have to come to relief camps to settle, and that is why in Tinsukia district there are a large number of inmates who have been staying. Yesterday, the CM had visited Bokaghat and Golaghat district. He took stock of the Kaziranga National Park. The commercial vehicle has been prohibited in the park area in the national highway, so that there is smooth movement of the wildlife animals.
Right.
A lot of wildlife animals have also been affected, and they moved from low-lying areas to the hills. So that's why he took stock of the whole situation. And also there have been embankment bridges in Kwang area of Dibrugarh. The Buri Dihing is flowing above.
All right, Sabina, we'll leave it here. All right, we'll leave it here. We'll come back to you again during the day to get more as to how the day is progressing with regard to the weather. Thank you for joining in as of now. All right, you're watching DD India News Hour. That was our correspondent Sabina joining us from Assam, telling us about the current situation of how the state is grappling with floods. Up next, we're heading for a short break, but after the break, stay with us as we get you more on Blinken and Ukraine's earmark decision on Ukraine's NATO bid. The original 1988 comedy horror classic Beetlejuice to kickstart Venice Film Festival.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, DC.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's continue getting you more international updates. The United Kingdom is just days away from a general election that could see the Conservative Party out of power for the first time in 14 years. Polls suggest Labour Party leader Keir Starmer is likely to be the country's next Prime Minister after the July 4th vote. DD India's Ollie Barrett gets us more from London.
All of the polls currently point in one direction ahead of the UK's election.
So it looks at the moment as if Labour will win and win easily.
That's not to say a win is guaranteed, but Rishi Sunak's Conservatives, in power in one form or another for 14 years, have struggled to eat into the Labour polling lead. So in the days after the election, Keir Starmer could be forming a government with a significant majority here at Parliament. That would bring huge opportunities for the centre-left party, but also huge challenges. After the COVID-19 pandemic, a war in Europe, a cost of living crisis, Britain's finances are creaking.
Well, the big issues facing the government that takes office on the 5th of July is that there are public service improvements needed in the UK, health service, railways, parts of the education system. Economic growth in the UK has been sluggish all the way back to 2008, in fact.
If Labour returns to power, the centre-left party's foreign policy is likely to include quite a lot of continuity with recent years. Relations with India will be a key focus.
We think so. I mean, look, India is the most exciting economic story in the world right now. We are in the middle of the Indian decade, at the start of the Indian century. And I think whoever's in power in the UK will recognise that and want to prioritise the relationship with India.
The Conservatives have also struggled with the rise of the right-wing Reform Party, which promises tougher action on immigration. Reform hopes to win the seaside seat of Clacton on the English south coast. Whatever happens there and elsewhere, it's already clear the makeup of the House of Commons will be very different. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a surprise appearance in the British election campaign on Tuesday, issuing a last-ditch bid to rally support for Conservatives and their leader, Rishi Sunak. Johnson won a big majority in the last election in 2019 before being forced to resign in 2022 by a Conservative mutiny which Sunak helped to start and which exposed deep splits in the governing party, not least between Sunak and Johnson. In a speech listing many of his own achievements, Johnson gave little personal endorsement to Sunak but focused on what he said were the dangers of the opposition Labour Party winning power.
You helped to send Jeremy Corbyn and his then disciple, Keir Starmer, into orbit where they belonged, and we got Brexit done. We restored democracy. We restored democracy to our country, and it was because we got a proper Brexit, and you will all remember how hard that fight was, that we came out of the EU single market, we controlled our own regulation. And my friends, whatever people may say, that national independence was vital when it came to approving COVID vaccines faster than any EU country, and therefore getting the fastest vaccine rollout of any major economy and the fastest economic rebound in the G7.
France's left-wing and centrist parties have withdrawn hundreds of candidates from parliamentary elections in an effort to block the far-right party from the gates of power. Over 200 candidates from President Emmanuel Macron's centrist camp and the left-wing alliance have stepped down. The mass exit came before a Tuesday registration deadline before the final runoff vote on Sunday. With no official list yet released, French media reported that between 214 and 218 third-placed contenders had pulled out of the race in their constituencies. It means there will now be around 108 three-way races instead of just over 300. Last Sunday's first round produced a big victory for the party of Marine Le Pen, which won around 33% of the vote. A broad left-wing alliance came second, and President Emmanuel Macron's centrists came in third. India granted additional funds of $100 million to Sri Lanka, in fact 100 million Sri Lankan rupees to Sri Lanka to construct transit houses at Madhu Shrine in Mannar for the benefit of pilgrims visiting the shrine. High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, and Secretary in the Sri Lankan Ministry of Urban Development and Housing, W.S. Satyananda, signed and exchanged diplomatic letters on Tuesday to formalize modalities related to the project. Responding to the challenges that arose in the economic landscape of Sri Lanka, India has provided additional funds to 9 ongoing grant projects to accelerate and ensure their timely completion. Israel issued the evacuation order for the areas of Khan Yunis and Rafah, which the United Nations has termed as the largest such edict in the Gaza Strip since 1.1 million people were told to leave the north of the enclave in October. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric said an evacuation of such a massive scale will only heighten the suffering of the civilians.
Yesterday, orders for evacuation of 117 square kilometers in Khan Yunis and Rafah governorates applied to about a third of the Gaza Strip, making it the largest such order since October, when residents were ordered to evacuate northern Gaza. OCHA underscores that an evacuation of such a massive scale will only heighten the suffering of civilians and drive humanitarian needs even higher. People are left with the impossible choice of having to relocate, some most likely for the second or even the third time, to areas that have barely any space or services, or stay in an area where they know the fighting will take place. Initial estimates by UNRWA indicates that nearly 250,000 people may have resided in the areas that are subject to the evacuation at the time the order was given.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and that the NATO summit will help build a bridge to that outcome. Blinken and top Zelensky aide Andriy Yermak discussed NATO members' intention to bring Ukraine closer to the alliance on Tuesday. They also discussed helping to strengthen Ukraine's ability to defend Russia and its aggression, along with the efforts led by G7 nations to enhance the resiliency of Ukraine's energy grid. The meeting came before a NATO summit in the U.S. capital next week, at which Ukraine hopes to secure more assurances from the alliance on its membership bid. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Tuesday said that the United States will soon announce more than $2.3 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine. During a meeting with Ukrainian counterpart at Pentagon, Austin said that the latest weapons package for Ukraine would include arms like anti-tank weapons and air defense interceptors, and also will allow accelerated procurement of NASAMS and Patriot defense interceptors. Austin also gave a nod to Ukraine's aspirations to eventually join NATO. He said U.S. will take steps to build a bridge to NATO membership for Ukraine at next week's NATO summit in Washington, D.C.
As we look ahead to the NATO summit next week, Rustam, we'll take steps to build a bridge to NATO membership for Ukraine. Just weeks ago, President Zelensky and President Biden signed a crucial 10-year bilateral security agreement. And that reflects our strong and enduring support for Ukraine. So I look forward to discussing more ways to meet Ukraine's immediate security needs and to build a future force to ward off more Russian aggression.
Protests in Kenya's capital Nairobi continued on Tuesday and other cities across the country, with protesters demanding the resignation of President William Ruto. The protests follow a week of deadly clashes over a $2.7 billion of tax hikes in a proposed finance bill. Our Africa correspondent Leon Senyange reports on this.
Kenyan police fired tear gas at protesters in the capital Nairobi on Tuesday as protesters have remained unrelenting in their demands. They are demanding changes in what they have described as rampant corruption and governance under President Ruto. They are also demanding that the president steps down. The protests have since expanded into a national movement. Hundreds of protesters in the coastal city of Mombasa were also reported to have staged demonstrations. There were protests in other towns of Kajiado, Kisumu, as well as Nakuru. An internet outcry against the roughly $2.7 billion in tax increases in a planned finance bill sparked the protests last week. Kenya's National Commission on Human Rights says at least 39 people have so far died in the protests. Leon Senyange reporting in Kampala, Uganda for DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. 2 women and a 15-year-old were injured in a tragic accident after a public transportation van collided with a parked taxi in Peru. According to the local media, the driver and the fare collector ran away after the accident. Crimean artist Pyotr Donsko delves deep into the sea to perform underwater painting that helps him to capture a closeness to reality that he believes only a creative mind is able to see with clarity. Gonsenko was inspired by Frenchman Henri Laban, the first underwater artist in history. The Burton's Beetlejuice will open this year's Venice Film Festival. The long-awaited sequel to the original 1988 comedy horror classic will be screened out of competition on August 28th, giving the 81st edition of the festival a high-profile, glitzy start. A quick break ahead, but after the break, we will tell you about defending champion Vondrousova losing in the first round in Wimbledon 2024. The much-awaited return of Team India likely on Thursday morning post-hurricane disruption. International Plastic Bag Free Day being observed across the globe today.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's turn focus to sports now. In the Euros, Turkey's Mary Demirel struck in each half and their goalkeeper Mert Günok pulled off a superb stoppage time save as they secured a high-octane 2-1 victory over Austria to book their spot in the Euro 2024's last 8. Celebrations broke out across many cities in Germany at the final whistle as thousands of Turks took to the streets, with their national team eyeing a repeat of their Euro 2008 semi-final run. For tournament dark horses Austria, it was a bitter end to their European Championship, with the team still waiting for their first win in a knockout match at any major tournament since 1954. Netherlands' Cody Gakpo scored his third goal of the European Championship, and Daniel Malen added two more late on, in fact, as the Dutch burst back into form with a lively display to defeat Romania 3-0 in their last 16 fixture. They reached the Euro quarterfinals for the first time since 2008. The final 16 of Euros 2024 has now been whittled down to the last 18. With the arrival of the quarterfinals, teams are now busy preparing off the pitch for several big clashes this weekend. From Berlin, DD India correspondent Trent Murray gets us more.
Well, if you've ever wondered how an elite football team rests and recovers before a big match, well, we've been given some insight. Take a look at these photos. This is from the England squad going through their recovery classes at their very lush-looking resort, I have to say, here in Germany as they prepare for their match against Switzerland on Saturday. It's part yoga, part meditation, part physical recovery. Take a look at the video released by the England team.
Let me breathe out. So when we're looking at rest and recovery, you really want to be going the other way. How do we switch off? And breathing is the best tool that you've got.
Well, that's how one team is preparing for this weekend. Another team, Germany, well, they are facing a lot of pressure here in the host nation. Now, they will take on Spain on Friday night, and already some newspapers here are talking about whether the Germans can break the so-called Spanish curse. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Spain and Germany are the two most successful teams at European Championship level. They both have won 3 trophies each over the tournament's history, but the most recent history hasn't been so kind to Germany. In fact, you have to go back 36 years to find a time when they were able to beat Spain at that level. The team here is saying that they do have the squad to be able to do it this time. As I say, it all kicks off 6 p.m. local time here on Friday in Germany. One imagines there may be some bosses across this country giving their employees an early mark to let them get out to the bar and have a cool beverage and watch the host nation play. The host nation also, just briefly, facing a few troubles on the administrative front. We are hearing UEFA, the organisers of this tournament, have fined the country $20,000 for security failures, specifically preventing pitch invaders, in other words, people running onto the field, taking photos with superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. We've seen that several times. Clearly, the organisers, UEFA, not happy with that. They're telling the Germans to up the game when it comes to security. We'll have to see how that all plays out this weekend when those crucial quarter-final matches take place. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Defending champion Marketa Vondrousova was knocked out in the first round of Wimbledon as she becomes the first female holder to fall at the opening hurdle since Steffi Graf 30 years ago. Czech Vondrousova became the first unseeded woman to lift the title last year. Russian 6th seed Andrei Rublev crashed out of the Wimbledon in the first round, losing to world number 122 Francisco Camazana of Argentina. Camazana was playing his first match at a Grand Slam. And the wait is finally over for Indian cricket fans. Their T20 World Cup winning team is likely to come home on Thursday morning after clinching the T20 World Cup title. Rohit Sharma-led side's travel plans were impacted by Hurricane Beryl in Barbados after a grueling month-long T20 World Cup. The team recently emerged victorious in the first World Cup in either format since the 2011 edition. Members of the squad, support staff and their families have been stranded on the island for the past 2 days due to flight cancellations. Hurricane Beryl hit the Caribbean islands on Monday with high intensity. As a precautionary measure, the entire island was shut down for 2 days, forcing the players to remain confined to their hotel. International Plastic Bag Free Day is being observed across the globe today, and plastic continues to be a growing threat to the nature, with about 400 million tons of plastic waste being generated annually. Deepika Mehta has a report that tells you about significance of International Plastic Bag Free Day and also reminds us of our responsibilities.
International Plastic Bag Free Day is observed every year on the 3rd of July with an aim to eliminate the use of single-use plastic bags. The need stands out of the threatening figures that pose danger to life on Earth, with about 400 million tons of plastic waste being generated annually. In 2008, Zero Waste Europe launched a campaign against single-use plastic bags. In 2014, India launched Clean India Mission or Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. In 2015, the European Union also passed certain directives to reduce the usage of single-use plastic bags. The movement gained momentum over the years, with many countries implementing bans on plastic bags. India is now playing a key role in reducing the usage of plastic. In 2019, from the ramparts of the iconic Red Fort in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on people to stop the use of single-use plastic bags in his Independence Day speech.
मैं स्टार्टअप वालों को, टेक्नीशियंस को, उद्यमियों को आग्रह करता हूं कि हम इन प्लास्टिक के रिसाइकल के लिए क्या करें। जैसे हाईवेज बनाने के लिए प्लास्टिक का उपयोग हो रहा है, ऐसी बहुत सी विधाएं हो सकती हैं, लेकिन जिसके कारण अनेक समस्याएं पैदा हो रही है, उससे मुक्ति के लिए हमने ही अभियान छेड़ना होगा।
India has remained committed to curb the usage of plastic across the country. Right from the year 2014, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched Swachh Bharat Mission, to a ban on identified single-use plastic items that was notified by the Ministry of Environment and came into effect in 2022, India has been adopting innovative packages as well.
ये जो जैकेट है, ये रिसाइकल मटेरियल का है, लेकिन ये रिसाइकल मटेरियल की भी विशेषता है। इसकी विशेषता ये है, जो टेलर के यहाँ कपड़े के टुकड़े निकलते हैं, ये सारा वेस्ट इकट्ठा किया हुआ है। फिर जो पुराने कपड़े हैं, उसको भी इसमें लिया हुआ है और 30-40% वेस्ट प्लास्टिक बोतल को लिया हुआ है और उन सबको रिसाइकल करके ये कपड़ा बना है।
About 400 million tons of plastic waste is generated annually, a figure expected to jump by 62% between 2024 and 2050. Much of this plastic waste leaks into the environment, especially into the rivers and oceans, where it breaks down into smaller particles. So this International Plastic Bag Free Day, let us pledge to switch to recyclable options in our daily lives and take small steps towards securing the environment. Deepika Mehta's report for DD India.
All right, let's take the resolve to stop the use of plastic altogether. On that note, we'll end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. Now, this app is available on both iOS and Android platforms, and you can scan the respective QR codes on your screen. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at In Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.